The Zorgan warship emerged from hyperspace like a nightmare made manifest, its obsidian hull seeming to devour the very light around it. On the bridge of the Galactic Council headquarters, a stunned silence hung in the air for a heartbeat before the first blast struck. Ambassador Helena Voss of Earth was thrown from her seat as the deck bucked beneath her. Klaxons blared and acrid smoke filled the air. She pulled herself upright, adrenaline surging through her veins. This was no diplomatic visit. It was an all-out assault. "Status report," Voss barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Shields down to 20%, a technician replied, his voice shaking. "The Zorgans, they just appeared out of nowhere. We had no warning." Voss's mind raced. The Zorgans were known for their aggression, but to attack the very heart of the Council, it was an act of madness. Or desperation. Another impact shook the ship, sparks cascading from overloaded consoles. Voss watched in horror as a counselor's lifeless body slumped to the floor. The Zorgans weren't just attacking. They were slaughtering the Council's leadership. In that moment, a cold clarity descended over Voss. The Council races, for all their advanced technology and vaunted wisdom, were woefully unprepared for a conflict of this scale. They'd grown complacent, secure in their belief that diplomacy could solve any crisis. But the Zorgans had just shattered that illusion with brutal efficiency. Voss knew there was only one hope for survival now. Earth had long maintained its own strategic protocols, kept secret even from their allies. Contingencies born from humanity's long, bloody history of warfare. They were the ace up Earth's sleeve, the hidden blade that could cut through any enemy. And now, it was time to unleash them. "Ambassador Voss to Earth Command," she said, activating her personal comlink. "Initiate Terran Protocol Alpha. Authorization code, Voss Epsilon Niner." There was a crackle of static. Then a voice replied, "Acknowledged, Ambassador. Protocol Alpha is active. The cavalry's on its way." Voss allowed herself a grim smile. The Zorgans had no idea what they'd just unleashed. She turned to the stunned counselors, her gaze sweeping over the representatives of a dozen worlds. Many were injured. All were terrified. They looked to her now, desperate for leadership, for salvation. "My fellow counselors," Voss said, her voice ringing with steely resolve. "The Zorgans have made a grave error today. They believe us weak, divided. They think they can shatter our alliance with one cowardly blow." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But they have forgotten the strength that lies within each of our races. They have forgotten the power of unity in the face of annihilation. And most of all, they have forgotten the indomitable will of Earth." A murmur ran through the assembled aliens, a mix of fear and tentative hope. Voss pressed on. "As of this moment, I am taking command of the Council's forces. We will rally every ship, every soldier, every scrap of defiance left in this galaxy. And together, we will show the Zorgans the true meaning of war." She activated the ship's intercom. "This is Ambassador Voss. All hands, prepare for emergency jump. We're going dark." As the crew scrambled to obey, Voss turned back to the view screen. The Zorgan ship loomed before them, an obsidian shark among the stars. It had tasted first blood, but the true battle was only beginning. "You wanted a war," Voss whispered, her eyes hardening with resolve. "Now you'll face the full might of the Terran protocols. And by the time we're done, you'll wish you'd never crawled out of the cosmic abyss you call home." The Council ship, the shattered remains of its diplomatic pretensions cast aside, leaped to FTL speed, vanishing into the darkness between worlds. And in its wake, a legend began to unfold. The legend of Helena Voss, the woman who would unite a galaxy, or see it burn in the trying. The Zorgan fleet hung in the void like a swarm of angry hornets, their ships bristling with weapons primed for slaughter. On the bridge of the Council's hastily assembled flagship, Ambassador Helena Voss studied the tactical display with a grim intensity. 3 days. That was all the time she'd had to rally the fractured Council races, to cobble together some semblance of a fighting force. 3 days to train warriors who'd never worked together, never faced a foe like the Zorgans. It was like trying to build a castle out of sand, with the tide already rising. But Voss had not come this far to surrender. The Terran protocols were humanity's greatest weapon, and she would wield them like a scalpel to excise the Zorgan cancer from the galaxy. Ambassador. A voice intruded on her thoughts. It was Zaxos, the Eldari counselor. His silvery skin gleamed in the dim light, his eyes haunted by the weight of centuries. Are you certain about this course of action? The risk is necessary. Voss cut in, her tone brooking no argument. The Zorgans have already shown us the alternative. Submission. Oblivion. Zaxos hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. As you say, Ambassador, the Eldari will stand with you, as we have sworn. But know that there are those among the Council who harbor doubts. They fear we are exchanging one tyrant for another. Voss's eyes narrowed. I am no tyrant, Counselor. I seek only to preserve our freedom, not to rule. The Terran protocols are a shield, not a sword. For Earth, perhaps, Zaxos replied softly. But for the rest of us, we have not forgotten the legends of your world's bloody past. How can we trust that your warriors will not turn on us, once the Zorgans are defeated? Anger flashed through Voss, hot and bright. How dare he question her motives, after all she had done? But she forced it down, knowing that division was a luxury they could not afford. You trust us, she said evenly, because we are trusting you. Right now, in this moment, human lives are on the line, same as Eldari, same as every race in this fleet. We rise or fall together. Zaxos held her gaze for a long moment, then bowed his head. Forgive my doubts, Ambassador. You have proven yourself a true ally. The Eldari will not waver again. Voss nodded curtly, then turned back to the tactical display. The Zorgan fleet was on the move, angling towards a human colony world. She felt a cold knot of dread in her stomach. They were making their intentions clear. Earth would burn first. All ships, prepare for jump, Voss ordered, her voice ringing across the bridge. We intercept the Zorgans at New Carthage, and may whatever gods you believe in have mercy on us all. The Council fleet leaped forward, a spear of defiance aimed at the heart of the enemy. But even as they hurtled through the darkness, Voss couldn't shake Zaxos' words from her mind. Trust. It was a fragile thing, easily shattered. And if the bonds between the Council races broke, then all the Terran protocols in the universe wouldn't be enough to save them. Voss clenched her fists, feeling the weight of worlds upon her shoulders. She had started this path, and she would see it through to whatever end awaited. For Earth, for the Council, for the future of all life in the galaxy. The first shots of the battle echoed across the stars, and the die was cast. The Zorgans had sown the wind, and now they would reap the whirlwind. Voss only hoped that when the storm had passed, there would still be something left to rebuild. The battle raged across the skies of New Carthage, a kaleidoscope of destruction that lit the heavens with unholy fire. Zorgan dreadnoughts pounded the planet's surface, laying waste to cities that had stood for centuries. But they did not go unopposed. Helena Voss led the charge, her Terran strike teams darting through the enemy lines like vengeful ghosts. They struck hard and fast, using unconventional tactics that left the Zorgans reeling. Hit-and-run attacks on supply lines, precision strikes on command centers, sabotage of weapons factories. The Terran protocols were a symphony of chaos, and Voss was the conductor. But even as her warriors racked up victories, Voss knew they were fighting a losing battle. The Zorgans were simply too many, their ships too powerful. For every enemy craft they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. It was like trying to hold back the tide with a bucket. Ambassador, we can't sustain these losses, her second-in-command reported grimly. We're down to half strength, and the Zorgans just keep coming. Voss gritted her teeth, her mind racing. They needed a game-changer, something to turn the tide. And then, with a flash of inspiration, she had it. The Zorgan command ship, she said, pointing to the massive vessel at the heart of the enemy fleet. "That's our target. If we can take out their leader, the rest will fall into disarray." "With respect, Ambassador," her lieutenant replied. "That's suicide. The defenses around that ship are impenetrable." Voss's eyes gleamed with a feral light. "Not if we use the Eldari cloaking tech. We'll infiltrate right under their noses, and then blow the bastard to hell from the inside." Her team exchanged nervous glances, but none dared argue. They knew the stakes, knew that failure here would mean the end of everything they had fought for. As they prepared for the mission, Voss's comm crackled with an incoming transmission. It was Calthor, the Zorgan Supreme Commander. His reptilian visage filled the screen, all sharp teeth and pitiless eyes. "Ambassador Voss," he hissed, his voice dripping with disdain. "I must admit, I am impressed by your tenacity. You fight like a Zorgan." Voss's lip curled in a snarl. "I'll take that as a compliment," she spat. "But flattery won't save you, Calthor. We're coming for you." The Zorgan laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You are welcome to try, human. But know this. When I am done with your pathetic council, I will burn Earth to a cinder. Your species will be nothing more than a footnote in the annals of Zorgan conquest." Voss leaned forward, her eyes hard as diamonds. "You underestimate us, Calthor. That's a mistake you won't live to regret." She cut the transmission, then turned to her team. "You heard him, people. The gauntlet's been thrown. Let's show these scaly bastards what humanity is made of." As they boarded their stealth ship, Voss felt a strange calm settle over her. This was the moment of truth, the point of no return. Win or lose, the galaxy would never be the same. She thought of Earth, of the billions of lives counting on her. She thought of the Council, fractured but unbroken. And she thought of the future, of the legacy she would leave behind. "For Earth," she whispered, as the ship slipped into the shadow of the Zorgan command vessel. "For the Council, for the Terran protocols." And with that, the infiltration began. The endgame had arrived, and Helena Voss would see it through to the bitter end, no matter the cost. Silence reigned on the bridge of the Council flagship, a pall of grief and shock that hung heavy in the recycled air. Helena Voss was gone, lost in the heart of the enemy stronghold, and with her, it seemed, had died the last hope of victory. Zaxos, the Eldari counselor, stared at the view screen with haunted eyes. The Zorgan fleet advanced unchecked, a swarm of locusts devouring all in its path. New Carthage was a ruin, its once proud cities reduced to rubble and ash. And now, with Voss's sacrifice, it seemed that all of Council space would soon follow. She knew the risks, he whispered, his voice hollow. She knew what it would cost. And still she went. Beside him, Admiral Qiong of the Terran fleet nodded grimly. "That was Helena," he said, a note of pride in his voice. "She never did know how to back down from a fight." Zaxos turned to him, desperation etched on his silvery features. "But what do we do now, Admiral? Without the ambassador, without the Terran protocols." Qiong's eyes hardened. "We fight, Counselor. We fight with every last breath in our bodies. Helena gave her life to buy us a chance. We owe it to her to make it count." As if on cue, the comm system crackled to life. It was Calthor, his reptilian visage twisted in a sneer of triumph. "Attention, Council scum," he gloated. "Your champion is dead. Your fleets are in ruins. Surrender now, and I may grant you the mercy of a quick death." Qiong's fists clenched, his jaw tight with rage. But before he could respond, another voice cut across the channel, a voice that sent a shockwave through every soul on the bridge. "I wouldn't count on that, you overgrown gecko," Helena Voss snarled. The view screen flickered, and there she was, battered, bloodied, but very much alive. And behind her, the twisted wreckage of what had once been the Zorgan command ship. Calthor's eyes widened in disbelief. "Impossible," he hissed. "I saw you die." Voss grinned, a feral flash of teeth. You saw what I wanted you to see, she retorted. The Terran protocols are full of surprises. She held up a data module, its surface shimmering with alien script. And speaking of surprises, look what I found on your ship. The schematics for your new weapon. The one you were planning to use to wipe out the Council. Calthor's face contorted with fury. You dare? Oh, I dare, Voss cut him off. And now, thanks to your own technology, we're going to turn the tables on you. Shang, are you ready? The Admiral straightened, a fierce light in his eyes. Always, Ambassador. Voss nodded, then turned back to Calthor. You wanted a war, you bastard. Now you've got one. She turned to Shang, tossing him the data module. Analyze that schematic. Find the weak points. And then, unleash hell. As the bridge erupted in a frenzy of activity, Voss sagged back in her chair, the adrenaline draining from her body. She had played the ultimate bluff, and somehow, impossibly, it had worked. But the fight was far from over. Calthor's weapon was still out there, and with it, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Voss closed her eyes, summoning the last reserves of her strength. She had started this journey, and by all the gods of Earth and beyond, she would see it through. The Terran protocols had brought them this far. Now it was time to see just how far they could go, and heaven help any Zorgan who stood in their way. The Zorgan homeworld was a nightmare made flesh, a twisted landscape of jagged rock and seething lava flows. It was here, in the heart of the enemy's power, that Helena Voss led her strike team on the most audacious mission of the war. Their objective: to infiltrate the heavily guarded research facility where Calthor's superweapon was being developed and steal the plans that could turn the tide of the conflict. It was a desperate gamble, a roll of the dice with the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. As they slipped through the shadows of the Zorgan stronghold, Voss felt a cold knot of fear in her gut. The place was a labyrinth of traps and defenses, each more deadly than the last. One misstep, one moment of carelessness, and they would all be reduced to atoms. But Voss had not come this far to fail. The Terran protocols were her sword and shield, the edge that had brought her through a dozen impossible battles, and she would wield them now with all the skill and cunning at her command. Steady, she whispered to her team, as they crouched in the shadow of a towering reactor core. Remember your training. Stick to the plan. We get in, we get the intel, we get out. And if things go south. She let the words hang in the air, a grim reminder of the stakes they all faced. There would be no rescue, no cavalry charge. If they were captured, they were on their own. With a silent signal, Voss led the way into the heart of the facility. They moved like ghosts, their steps guided by the stolen schematics Voss had recovered from Calthor's command ship. Past sentry guns and force fields, through corridors lined with pulsing conduits and humming power nodes. And then, at last, they'd reached their goal, the central data core, a towering spire of alien technology that held the secrets of the Zorgan's ultimate weapon. Voss motioned to her tech specialist, a wiry Eldari named Zin. You're up, she murmured. Crack that system. Find me those plans. Zin nodded, his fingers flying over the console with blinding speed. For a long moment, there was only the hum of the machines, the rasp of Voss's breath in her ears. And then, with a soft chime, the screen flickered to life. Schematics, formulas, reams of data scrolling past at dizzying speed. Zin's eyes widened, his face going slack with shock. Ambassador, he breathed. This is beyond anything we've seen. The power output, the range, if the Zorgans complete this weapon. Voss's jaw tightened, a cold fury settling into her bones. They won't, she said flatly, because we're going to stop them. Right here, right now. She reached for the data module, her hand trembling slightly as she prepared to download the precious intel. And then, with a sickening lurch, the world turned upside down. Alarms blared, red lights flashing in a dizzying strobe. The door to the data core exploded inward, a squad of Zorgan warriors storming into the room with weapons drawn. Intruders. Their leader bellowed, his voice a guttural snarl. Kill them all. Voss reacted on instinct, her training taking over. She dove for cover, her blaster spitting fire as she rolled. Her team scattered, taking up defensive positions as the Zorgans opened up with a barrage of plasma fire. It was chaos, a maelstrom of light and sound, and searing heat. The Zorgan fleet reeled in the face of the Council's onslaught, their formations fracturing like shattered glass. Helena Voss stood on the bridge of the flagship, her eyes alight with a fierce, implacable resolve. The knowledge gleaned from Calthor's stolen schematics had been put to devastating effect. Council ships, retrofitted with reverse-engineered Zorgan technology, tore through the enemy's defenses like they were made of paper. The tide had turned, and for the first time since the war began, victory seemed within reach. But Voss knew better than to underestimate her foe. Calthor was a cunning adversary, and he would not go down without a fight. Even now, as his fleet crumbled around him, the Zorgan commander was plotting his next move. All ships, press the attack, Voss ordered, her voice ringing with authority. Don't give them a moment to regroup. We have them on the ropes. Let's keep them there. Across the battle lines, the Council forces surged forward, their weapons flaring with deadly precision. Zorgan ships exploded into clouds of shrapnel and plasma, their crews consumed by the firestorm. But even as they fell, Voss could see Calthor's strategy unfolding. The Zorgan ships were falling back, but not in retreat. They were maneuvering, drawing the Council forces into a carefully laid trap. Admiral Chung, Voss barked, pull your left flank back. They're trying to lure you into a crossfire. Xiong nodded grimly, relaying the orders to his captains. The Council ships veered away, barely avoiding the withering hail of fire that erupted from the Zorgan's hidden batteries. Voss gritted her teeth, her mind racing. Calthor was playing for time, trying to buy himself a chance to regroup and counterattack. She couldn't let that happen. All ships, concentrate fire on the Zorgan command vessel, she ordered. Take out Calthor, and the rest will crumble. It was a gamble, a roll of the dice that could turn the tide of battle in an instant. But Voss had staked everything on this fight, and she would see it through to the end. As the Council ships bore down on Calthor's flagship, the Zorgan commander's face appeared on the view screen. His reptilian features were contorted in a snarl of hate and defiance. You think you've won, human, he hissed. You think your petty tricks and stolen technology can save you. I am Calthor, Lord of the Zorgan Empire. I cannot be defeated. Voss leaned forward, her eyes hard as flint. You're right, Calthor, she said softly. You can't be defeated, but you can be destroyed. With a final, savage command, she unleashed the full might of the Council fleet. Weapons blazed, torpedoes and ion cannons, and particle beams converging on the Zorgan flagship in a maelstrom of destruction. For a moment, the ship seemed to shudder, its shields flaring with an unearthly glow. And then, with a blinding flash of light, it exploded into a billion shards of molten metal. Voss sagged back in her chair, a wave of exhaustion crashing over her. It was over. The Zorgan fleet was in ruins, their commander dead. The war was won. But even as the cheers erupted around her, Voss felt a hollow ache in her chest. So much had been lost, so many lives sacrificed on the altar of victory. And for what? A moment's respite, a brief flicker of peace in an uncaring universe. She shook her head, pushing the thoughts away. There would be time for reflection later. For now, there was work to be done, a galaxy to rebuild, a future to secure. The Terran protocols had brought them this far. It was up to her to make sure they finished the job, no matter the cost. The skies above Earth burned with the fury of 1,000 suns, the atmosphere itself seeming to shudder under the weight of the apocalyptic battle raging in the heavens. Helena Voss stood on the bridge of her flagship, her eyes fixed on the seething maelstrom of destruction that had once been Calthor's armada. The Zorgan commander had played his final card, launching a desperate, all-out assault on the human homeworld. It was a gambit born of madness and despair, a last-ditch effort to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. But Voss had been ready for him. The Terran protocols, honed to a razor's edge by months of brutal warfare, had turned the tables on the invaders. Earth's defenses, bolstered by reverse-engineered Zorgan technology, had met the enemy head-on and sent them reeling. Now, as the last of Calthor's ships broke apart under the relentless onslaught of Council fire, Voss felt a grim sense of satisfaction. They had done it. Against all odds, against an enemy that had seemed invincible, they had prevailed. But the victory had come at a terrible cost. Earth's cities lay in ruins, its people battered and bloodied by the savagery of the Zorgan assault. And the Council fleet, once a mighty armada that had spanned the stars, was a shadow of its former self. As Voss surveyed the carnage, her comm crackled with an incoming transmission. It was Calthor, his image flickering and distorted, his ship burning around him. "Voss," he rasped, his voice thick with pain and fury. "You think you've won. You think this is over." Voss leaned forward, her eyes hard as diamonds. "It's over, Calthor," she said coldly. "Your fleet is in ruins, your empire crumbling. Surrender now, and I'll grant you a quick death." The Zorgan commander laughed, a harsh, grating sound that sent shivers down Voss's spine. "Surrender? To you? Never." He coughed, a trickle of dark blood running from the corner of his mouth. "You may have beaten me, human, but there will be others. The Zorgan people will never bow to your rule. We will fight you to the last breath, to the last drop of blood." Voss shook her head, a flicker of sadness in her eyes. "It doesn't have to be this way, Calthor. We can find a way to coexist, to build a future together." But even as she spoke the words, she knew they were hollow. The Zorgans were a warrior race, bred for battle and conquest. They would never accept peace, never lay down their arms. Calthor's face twisted in a snarl of hate. "Coexist? With humans? With the Council? Never. We will rise again, Voss. We will crush you beneath our heel and take our rightful place as the masters of the galaxy." His image flickered, the transmission breaking up as his ship began to disintegrate around him. "Remember this moment, human. Remember the day you sealed your own doom." And with that, the screen went dark, the last of the Zorgan fleet vanishing into the void. Voss sagged back in her chair, a wave of exhaustion crashing over her. It was done. The war was won, the enemy vanquished. But at what cost? She looked out at the ravaged Earth, at the shattered remnants of the Council fleet. They had survived, but the scars would run deep. It would take generations to rebuild, to heal the wounds of this terrible conflict. And even then, there was no guarantee of lasting peace. Calthor's final words echoed in her mind, a grim prophecy of the struggles yet to come. But for now, there was only the bitter taste of victory, the knowledge that they had bought themselves a reprieve, however fleeting. The Terran protocols had saved them, but the price had been higher than any of them could have imagined. Voss closed her eyes, a single tear trickling down her cheek. The future was uncertain, the path ahead fraught with peril. But one thing was clear. The legend of Helena Voss, the woman who had united a galaxy and brought the mighty Zorgan Empire to its knees, would echo through the ages. And the Terran protocols, the sacred trust that had been passed down to her, would endure, no matter the cost. Decades had passed since the Zorgan War, years of rebuilding and renewal that had seen the shattered Galactic Alliance rise from the ashes of conflict. Helena Voss, now an elder stateswoman of the Council, gazed out the window of her office on the gleaming spires of New Babylon, the capital of a reborn civilization. It had been a long road, fraught with challenges and setbacks. The scars of the war ran deep, and there were many who had doubted that the fragile peace forged in the crucible of battle could endure. But Voss had never lost faith, never wavered in her conviction that a better future was possible. And now, as she looked out over the bustling metropolis below, She felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. The Council had not only survived, but thrived, becoming a beacon of hope and unity for all the races of the galaxy. At the heart of it all were the Terran protocols, the guiding principles that had seen them through the darkest days of the war. Voss had codified them, enshrined them as the foundation of the new galactic order. No longer were they the secret weapon of a single world, but the shared inheritance of all sentient beings, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity and the power of cooperation in the face of adversity. A chime sounded, shaking Voss from her reverie. "Enter," she called out, turning to face the door. It slid open, revealing a young Eldari diplomat, his silver skin flushed with excitement. "Ambassador Voss," he said, bowing deeply. "I bring news from the outer reaches. A new species has made contact, requesting to join the Council." Voss raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. "A new species? Tell me more." The diplomat handed her a datapad, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. "They call themselves the Vari, and they hail from a system on the edge of the Orion Arm. Their technology is primitive by our standards, but they show great potential, and they have expressed a deep admiration for the Terran protocols and the ideals they represent." Voss scanned the data, a slow smile spreading across her face. The Vari were a young race, still taking their first tentative steps into the wider galaxy, but they had already shown a remarkable resilience and adaptability, qualities that would serve them well in the years to come. "Schedule a meeting with their representatives," she said, handing the pad back to the diplomat. "I want to hear their story firsthand and see how we can help them on their journey." The diplomat nodded, bowing once more before taking his leave. Voss turned back to the window, her gaze drawn to the stars that glittered in the velvet depths of space. So much had changed since those early days, when the Terran protocols were little more than a desperate gamble, a last-ditch effort to stave off annihilation. Now they were a symbol of hope, a guiding light for all who sought a better way. And as Voss looked to the future, she knew that the legacy of Earth, and of the brave men and women who had fought and died to defend it, would endure. The Terran protocols had brought them this far, and they would continue to shape the destiny of the galaxy for generations to come. It was a heavy responsibility, a sacred trust that had been passed down to her, but Voss was ready to bear the burden, to carry the torch that had been lit in the fires of war. For she knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, the spirit of humanity would never be broken. And as long as the Terran protocols endured, there would always be hope, always be a chance for a brighter tomorrow. The legend of Helena Voss and of the Terran protocols would live on, a beacon of light in the darkness, a testament to the unquenchable spirit of a species that had dared to reach for the stars, and in doing so, had changed the face of the galaxy forever.